Hey y'all, it's Megan and Andy. Welcome back to the channel. Glad y'all are here today. Come along with us this evening. We don't typically do like how-to videos most of the time, not a dedicated how-to video. We had so many people ask in the comments, please show us in detail how to prune fruit trees, or how we prune them anyway. So that's what we're going to show you today. But first, I got to show you our newest surprise.
That's right.
If you watched the last video, it was at the very last few seconds. But Black Star, she had her baby, and she's been an excellent mama, which I was very worried about.
See the little thing?
It's a little heifer.
Yeah, it's going to hide behind Black Star, of course. She's been good. The cat's been drinking up a storm.
Oh, yeah. Maggie is calling her Duchess.
Duchess?
So that's what Maggie's calling her.
I hadn't heard that. We're going to go down here and get started with it. I've actually already pruned, I don't know, a little less than half the trees. So we don't have to prune all of them this evening. And we're probably not going to get to prune all of them this evening because we've got a couple big trees down here that will take quite some time to do, but we'll at least show you how we're going to prune. We've got a peach tree here, a peach tree here, and right there in that big old ball of fire shining in the sky is the silhouette of a pear tree. Now this one needs some major pruning. These are what you call suckers, and all of these need to come out of there. You don't want those in there because these branches that are growing straight up like that, they will not bear fruit.
And it'll take away from the energy from the tree for it to bear fruit.
Exactly,
right?
Because it's putting energy towards growing those.
Yeah.
Now, I want to say that last year we pruned every single one of those out, and this year
they're back.
Just because you prune them out each year doesn't mean they're not going to come back. They're going to come right back off of that little node down there where you pruned off from.
Just remember, like what we're going to be showing you today, this is the way that we've done it for years and years, and there is more than one way to skin a cat. Like there are so many different ways to prune fruit trees, and what we're showing you today is just how we do it.
I prune trees, fruit trees especially, have multiple ways of pruning them. You know, they're just... It all depends on what you're trying to do with the tree. Me, I like to let a tree be a tree. I don't prune it to give me a maximum amount of fruit. I have a bunch of trees planted for that. I prune the tree so it's a strong, healthy tree. It's got good structure to it. I like my limbs to have nice structure, and it just makes the tree look nice. So we're going to start with this particular tree here. This is one of the biggest in one of the biggest apple trees we have here. First off, I stand back and I look at the tree and I think to myself, I'm going to be mowing around this tree. If this tree was out somewhere you didn't have to mow around it, you could treat it different. But we mow around our trees. So this limb right here immediately needs to go. Anything that's hanging down here low that I'm going to hang or catch with the mower needs to go. So when you're pruning fruit trees, there's two basic tools I like to have. Your hand pruners. These are Coronas, BP 6250s. These are a copy of the famous Felco #2 pruners. They're identical to them, except they're a whole lot cheaper, and in my opinion, are just as good as the Felcos. This, on the other hand, is a made in Taiwan folding saw. There's nothing fancy about this thing at all. In my opinion, there is some cheap Chinese junk folding saws out there, but a whole lot of them seem to be pretty good. They've all got a really sharp edge, and anytime you're pruning something big, like on this, I could either use a pair of loppers or this, and I like to do this. You see right, hopefully this shows up because on the camera it's not looking as prevalent as it is in real life. There's like a growth ring right there. It's like a swollen spot in the stalk, I mean in the limb. We want to prune just on the outside of that to get this limb to heal over at the maximum speed it can. You know, we can prune right up against the trunk, it's just not going to heal over as fast. You don't want to prune out here either. You want to prune it right there at that growth ring, just on this side of it. Well, on a bigger limb like this, once we get pretty close to being through, I want to grab it so it doesn't pull off and tear that bark. And see right there, we've got a nice clean cut. That should heal over pretty quick. That's going to be one of the only big limbs I cut off of this tree. So, and I think I'm going to cut this one right here too, because it's also hanging out sort of low. Right here you can see the growth ring on this one. It's more swollen right there than it is right there. So you want to cut right there. I see something right here at the base we need to tackle. We've got suckers coming up right around the base of the tree. These suckers are coming off the rootstock. This tree was grafted right there. This is where this portion right here was grafted onto the rootstock. So these suckers right here aren't even the same type of apple that this tree is. They're whatever type of rootstock we had. So we want to get them out of there, cut them out. I haven't completely figured out how to prevent them from coming out of there yet. My best advice to you is dig down in there, prune them as close to the tree as you possibly can. And I have noticed that doing it this way year after year, it seems we have a lot less suckers coming up from the base than we've had before. Like that one right there, that's actually coming off of our root. Okay, we're done with that. So next thing, we want to look at the tree and see any limbs that are crossing over other limbs. For instance, this one. It's not touching this limb yet, but it's going to. So we want to take him out. So if it does rub, there's not one on this tree that's been rubbing, but we can use this for example. If this limb's rubbing this limb, they're going to eventually, like when the wind blows and stuff, they're going to eventually scar each other right there. And anytime you've got an opening in the bark, you've got somewhere that, well, it's just like having a cut on you. You've got somewhere where disease or whatever can enter into that tree, and you just don't want an open wound on a tree that doesn't have to be there. Obviously, with us pruning here, we're creating an open wound, but the whole point of us pruning the way we do is them open wounds will heal pretty quick. Everything on this tree's got a growth ring, anywhere where one comes out. See, just like on that little bitty limb right there's your growth ring.
Oh, you can see it good on that one.
Can you? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to take out, instead of this one, I'm going to take out the one that's running straight up. And I'm going to leave this one right here. Well, that's really all I see for right now of any that's crossing. So the next thing I want to do is just get in here and thin it out. You want airflow through the tree. So what we're going to do is get right in here to the trunk, and all of these little dudes like this right here, taking those out. And anytime you see these right, like I would about bet you that's almost a year's worth of growth right there. It shot up really quick. That's what I call a sucker. Any growth that shoots up super fast is a sucker. It's not going to have fruit on it anyways. At least not this year. Now, you know, you let it get on up in age, it might potentially have fruit. But we don't want those there, so we're taking those out too. Right here I've got one. This must have been a limb that had a couple apples on it, and you see how it's drooping down? I'm going to take that one out and leave this one in its place. And a general rule of thumb when pruning a tree is you don't want to cut anything bigger than your thumb. And you see right now we're just about there on the ones we've cut so far. But you always, anything that you cut that's smaller than your thumb will generally heal over pretty quick. You know, obviously that ain't always the case. You know, sometimes you do have to have limbs come out that are good sized limbs. But once again, like I said, that's the general rule of thumb of pruning. So I'm still looking right now. Right here's one I don't want in there, just because it's kind of pointing straight down. Don't want that. And we've already, just no more than we've taken out, we've opened this tree up a lot. I'm gonna take this one out because this one's pointing downward. And there's nothing wrong with that limb pointing downward. I'm just still thinking about me having to mow around this. It's pointing downward and it's probably gonna continue to grow out this way. And it's gonna end up being our way when we go around them with a mower. Right here's one that's crossing. See, now that one to me is a tough decision because we've got one part here that's growing straight up. So most likely this is gonna be the limb that's gonna have fruit on it, where this one right here ain't. But then down here, we've got some fruiting spurs on it, so those are probably gonna have fruit on them. I think I'm just gonna take out the little one right here. There'll be a bloom. See, that's what that's gonna be. That's gonna be your bloom that opens up. And on the tip of that's gonna be where your apple is. That's why on these with suckers, see right here, I would call this a sucker. You don't have none of those. There's none of those spurs on there. It's just a straight stem. But you gotta remember that's all last year's growth too. That's all new growth. Whereas on this, we have a fruiting spur there, there. So I'm leaving that whole limb, and this one will eventually mature into a limb that'll have fruit on it. But right now, I think that might actually be all I do to that tree. I think I'm gonna take out a couple of these just to thin it out. Right here is one that needs to come out. So we're gonna take out these two because those are, once they grow this year, they're gonna touch right there. So we wanna take out, honestly, I can't say that one of these is better than the other one, so I'm just gonna take out this one because it's easier for me to get to. I think I'm gonna take out this one. I don't like the looks of that one that's sticking straight up there. Now we'll take all of the clippings, we'll throw them away from here just in case there's any disease or anything in these clippings. But as for that, I think that looks pretty good, and I believe I'm gonna leave it just like that for this year. So let's move on to the next. This is gonna be a pretty quick tree to prune because everything on it's small and I can just somewhat fly through it. I've got one main trunk coming up right here that's for some reason leaning. We had a rope tied to it, or a string. That's something you run into with fruit trees, is sometimes you'll notice they don't have the best root system on them and they'll just fall over. So it's nothing to have something out here to tie one up. But anyways, I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna clean out. I've got a sucker there, I got a sucker there. I'm gonna get started with those two. And then next, I basically just want to clean up the inside of it here and allow some airflow. I'm going to get this low one. We got one that's crossing over right here. We're going to take him out. We got one there doing the same thing. I think that one right there should come out. This one's awful low to the ground, so I'm going to take it out. Now that I see it, I'm going to take this whole thing right here out too, and I think I need my saw for that. Once again, y'all, the lower limbs, that's something that you can leave if you don't have to be doing maintenance around the tree. Those lower limbs really don't hurt anything. They just limit your access to the tree. Well, for that, I think I'm leaving that one just like it is.
It looks good.
That one looks a lot better. All right, on this one here, I'm going to take out all three of these lower branches. Once again, simply because we're mowing around the trees. that'll somewhat encourage the trees to grow up as well instead of out, which is somewhat opposite of what most people want for a fruit tree. Most people want them to grow out instead of up, but I'd rather have my trees growing up instead of out. Take out a couple of those crossing limbs and taking out this one. And that's going to be it. It's good for that tree. Something else to consider when pruning trees is not every tree is going to be the same. Each tree is going to be completely different from the other. So everything that I'm trying to explain to y'all is basically just a general idea to go off of. It's not going to work for every single tree. This tree right here ain't going to require much at all. I think we'll take those two and that one and that one. That's a crossover. We'll get that thing out of there. And I personally think that tree looks pretty good. All right, but down here is a different situation. So this is a tree that we planted from a seedling. It's a peach tree. We've got two different leaders coming up right here. I could cut this one out and let this be my main tree, but I'm okay with it having two main trunks. What I want to do is limb this thing up and open it up around the center. So I'm gonna first take off this limb right here. I'm gonna take off all these little ones. We're gonna get this trunk cleaned up. And something, I think I've already mentioned this, but I want to show you an example of it. You don't want to do this. You don't want to cut that limb off like that, right? Like if you want this whole limb gone, you don't want to leave that. You don't even want to do that or that. You want to get it right up to that growth ring, and that growth ring is really easy to see on this peach. So you see the growth ring right there? And there's actually already another bud right there that's wanting to come out and grow off of that growth ring. I'm going to knock him off because I don't want another limb coming off down here. But I'm going to prune it like that. Now you'll get a good healed up limb. By this time next year, that will be completely healed over, if not sooner. But all these little limbs in here that's crossing over, like we want to eliminate all that. We're going to clean this trunk up all the way up to at least these first forks right here. I know somebody's going to ask what kind of peach trees are these, but y'all, they came up from a seed and we don't know. They came up from the chicken coop. We had several, I guess we fed the chickens a bunch of peaches, or I don't know what happened. Anyways, a bunch of peach trees came up in the chicken coop and we transplanted several of them. And this is one of them. What you doing, girl? So you see just how I've opened up this main trunk right here in less than a minute. This is all cleaned up and looking a lot nicer. And I could leave it just like that, but I'm going to take it a little bit farther and I'm going to cut that one out. I believe I'm going to cut that one out. That one's tough. I'm going to cut a couple more of these low hanging limbs out. And I'm going to leave it just like that for now. Next year, I can already tell you that this one will probably come out. These will probably come out. These will probably come out. But for now, we're going to leave it be just like that. But in less than 2 minutes, we completely transformed that tree and it looks cleaner and uniform. So over here, I have another tree that's got a totally different situation going on than all the rest of them you've seen us prune so far. This tree is one of the ones we transplanted out of the ditch over here, and so it never grew near as good as the rest of the trees have. Until this year, last year we transplanted it, and it actually put on quite a bit of new growth last year. But I think one of the main rules to follow when pruning a tree ain't quite as much how you prune it, it's the method you use to prune it. Is like I've told you already, you don't do that. You want to cut it all the way back up to the trunk. We're going to get that sucker right there out of there. This one's coming out somewhat towards the yard here too, so I don't know. This is a tough tree to judge because it's so short and small already that I just don't know. But I think I'm going to take out that sucker. I don't like the looks of that guy. We got one right there that looks like it got some dead in it. That one's still alive, so we're going to leave that limb right there for now. But I believe we'll take out that one. Well, I think that's all we're going to do to that tree. I don't like the looks of this limb right here, but I'm leaving it because I don't have anything at all on this side of the tree. The whole tree is leaning or is growing that way except for this limb. So for now, we're leaving that, and if we end up having to do something with it later, we will. I've got all my little brush piled up down here around all the trees. I think that'll be something good for Jacob and Maggie to do tomorrow, is come down here and clean up my mess. And anybody wondering where they're at, they're with Grandma and Papa right now. This one is what I'd call a mess. It's not going to take me long at all to clean it up, but it's a mess. So just like I keep saying, coming in here and cleaning out the center of the tree, I'm going to get these two because they're coming off of a limb I've already cut off. I'm going to clean that one out. We got a crosser over right there we're going to clean out. We got two crossovers right here. And this one, I wouldn't be afraid to say, has potentially got some kind of blight. I'm going to show you why. That's one of the main reasons I've been saving this one to last, because I already knew this tree looked like this. But I will show you in just a second. We want to get this one right here that's growing straight up out. We're going to go ahead and cut that one because it's all curved up. It don't look good. We're going to get that one. It's going to grow crossways across the rest of them. I think we're going to go ahead and take that one out. And I believe I'm going to take that one out. We're going to let this one come up, even though I don't exactly like the structure. So even though I don't exactly like the way this is going to be, because you go up, angle over, and then it's going straight up, I'm going to leave that one to be somewhat my new leader going up the center of the tree. Now we already have a leader growing out this way, and we've got one growing out that way. But the center of this tree has nothing. So we're leaving this, and next year we will look at it again and decide if we're going to leave both of them or if we're going to take one of them out. And I think this might have some kind of blight. It's because of that right there. When you see the bark on a fruit tree start looking like that, there is potentially some type of blight going on, or it could have been injured. That could be some type of wound that's starting to heal over. Now, I don't exactly remember anything happening to this tree, but that doesn't mean anything. The more I look at it, the more to me it actually looks like an injury instead of a blight. So hopefully that's what it is. So for now, I'm going to leave all these little side shoots coming off of this limb. Next year, when I prune, some of them will come out, but I'm going to leave them for now. We'll see which ones grow the strongest, and then next year we'll clean it up again. After standing on this side of the tree, I've decided that I'm taking this one out because it's hanging over into the grass where we mow. And this one here is. So we're taking it out. Even though this is a fruiting limb, we're going to take this one out because it's going to be in our way. So here's the one and only situation where you would cut off the end of a limb. So on this particular tree, we've got this limb coming out like this right here, and it's growing straight out into my way where I'm going to be mowing. Well, you can see that I've got a couple of limbs right here that are wanting to grow straight up from it. Well, for now, I'm going to cut this end off right there at the end of that limb. That will heal over right there, and that limb right there will come out and start growing in its place. I don't like doing them this way. However, this is the only limb on this side of the tree, and I don't want to take it off, because then if I take this limb off, this tree is going to be uneven around, and this side over here will be kind of bare. We'll step back and give you a good look of what I'm talking about. See how on this side of the tree, that's the only limb coming out. Like I said, I don't exactly like doing them like that. Next year, that limb may come out because I don't like the result I got out of pruning it that way. But for now, we're leaving it, and we'll just see what it does in a year's time. So since it's not completely dark yet, I'm gonna come up here and work on this pear tree. So all these little suckers are pretty visible from where y'all are standing there. All of this needs to come out. So real quickly, that's what I'm gonna do. Now I am going to say that there's suckers way up in the top of this tree that I can't reach, that I could probably go get the pole saw or something like that and reach them and get them out of there. But for this video, you're just going to see me clean out what's down here low to the ground that I can reach with without getting on a ladder or getting a pole saw. So this little section right here is done. These are all what I was talking about, the fruiting spurs. And if this tree blooms, there could potentially be fruit on every single one of those spurs. And them things are sharp too. They hurt if you get against them. So I'm gonna move on over to this limb now. All these little suckers are the same way. They've all got a growth ring that you want to prune up to.
You see it good on this one.
The growth ring?
Is that what that is?
Yep. See, we're going to prune right there.
Pretty prevalent on that one.
It is. Some trees it's a lot more prevalent than other trees. It all depends on the tree. So all of this is fine out here. We're leaving that alone. We've got a limb that's going to end up rubbing on that one. We're going to take that out. We'll take that little guy out. All right, so that limb's done. We're going to move on around to the trunk part right here. We've got a couple of suckers that are shooting up that trunk. We want to get those out of there. But I'm going to tell you, y'all, you know, I've seen fruit trees, especially around all these old farmhouses and stuff around here that ain't been pruned, and shoot, they may have never been pruned. And they still have fruit on them. And so I'm not saying this is something you got to do, but it's definitely something that keeps you with a healthier tree, a lot more manageable tree. And a lot of times, if you prune it the correct way, your tree won't get loaded down with fruit to the point that it breaks every limb on it when it goes and starts bearing fruit. See, we're keeping a strong structure of limbs here. We don't want these little flimsy suckers either, because if they ever do start bearing fruit where they've grown so fast, they're not that stout of a limb. And we're getting to the point that I can't reach it.
It already looks a lot better.
It does, don't it?
Yeah.
We might actually have time to go over here and do something to the peach trees. We might get done this evening. Because I'll tell you, pruning, that's something else. If you stay on top of your pruning, it goes pretty quick. Now, if you've got some old trees that 10 or 15 years old that's never been pruned, well, you know, you can, goodness, you can spend some time on those. But if you keep up with your pruning every year, it's just like everything else. It don't get out of hand. And you know, it makes a pretty quick job of it because we've only been out here, what, 30 minutes right now? And I think it probably took me about, on the other half of the trees that I pruned off camera, I might have 20 minutes. So maybe at the moment, a total of an hour in everything. And we've got a bunch of trees, y'all. Of course, they're all still small trees too. Once they get bigger, the bigger they get, the bigger a job it'll probably be. That actually looks a lot better. I do see some stuff way up there at the top that if I had my pole saw, I could reach up there and get those out, but I'll just get that later, sometime later. All right, let's move on to this peach tree because this peach tree suffered big time last year. We didn't prune these peach trees last year because typically our peaches get bit back by frost.
These peach trees are like 10 years old. We've only got, what, peaches off them twice. Yeah.
Last year was the best year ever.
Yeah.
But they didn't get bit back with frost last year. And especially this one, it suffered a lot. We got a limb here that broke off, which we'll address that in a minute. We got a limb right here that broke off. This limb shot way out here, and it just had way more on it than it could handle, and it broke. So I'm gonna show you what you do in this situation. You do not wanna leave it like that right there. We're gonna cut this back to here. So there is a growth ring here. I guarantee y'all can't see this on the camera because it's not very prevalent at all. Uh-oh, I scarred it. Now that should heal over and be good, but we've got a nice clean cut right there, something that can heal. It would have never healed. So here, we do have a wound on the tree that I can't really do much about. But what I am gonna do is cut this whole limb out. It's actually still green and living, but we don't wanna leave it there. We're gonna try to get in here and clean this up the best we can. Look, it's already starting to heal right there. See that? Mm-hmm. This one's gonna be tough because I'm gonna have to get it to come underneath of it like this. There we go, that wasn't too bad.
It was barely hanging on.
It was. So I don't necessarily like that, but there really ain't much we can do. And it's already starting to heal over. I see right there, all of that's new growth that's going to eventually callus over top of all that. And that's just going to be what it is.
The one year we didn't prune them because we said, oh, it ain't going to be.
Yeah, we said, oh, use some fooling with it because they ain't going to make nothing no ways. I'm going to go ahead and take this limb off because it's low hanging. We've got new limbs coming up here. I call these suckers, however, they'll turn into mature limbs eventually. We're going to leave this, and this because this tree has been broke twice. Last year and
the first time it had peaches.
Yeah, the first time it had peaches. So we're going to leave those there to kind of help fill out the canopy of the tree. I'm going to take out this limb. So once again, we're still got a limb that's right at the size of my thumb as far as big roundness. So we're still staying in that rule of don't cut anything big. The general rule of thumb is don't cut anything bigger than your thumb. I'm going to take out this limb because if all of this ends up having peaches on it, this will never hold. So we're going to take out that one. Plus it's too clustered out there anyways. There we go.
Can you kill your tree by pruning it?
If you prune it the right way, no. If you come in here like on a big oak or a maple or something that's in your front yard and top it and cut off limbs that are this big around, leaving them just sticking up as nothing, I've seen a lot of trees die from that. And for whatever reason, topping trees is extremely popular around here. Everybody thinks you got to top your trees. So I'm just going to clean this up. We got a pretty sunset this evening. All right. So there's not a whole lot more I'm going to do to this tree because it's already suffered so much. I do got one right here that needs to come out. But it's already lost so much from this past year that I'm not going to take a whole lot more out of it. And actually, now that I look, I think this one should come out too. Okay, so we'll leave that. That one actually looks dead. Yeah, those are dead limbs. Take that out. We got a crossover limb right there we're going to take out. Got a bunch of little things coming off of this stalk right here. I'm going to take those out. Got one right there that's going to cross over. Going to get him out. Get that one out. That's a crossover limb. Right there's one. Right there, there. All of those limbs you see me just take out are something that's going to eventually cross one or the other here. So I'm just going ahead and taking them out. And then right here, this one's going to do the same. It's going to eventually cross over into that one up there. So we're going to go ahead and take it out. And as you can see, in just a few minutes time here, we have really opened up this tree. And I think I might take me a couple off of this just to lighten the load on that limb. And we're going to leave it at that. Right here's a cross limb. Take that one out, and that one, and that one, and that one, and that one, and that one. Okay, so that tree's done. Next is this mess. Now this tree needs a lot of attention as well. This is by far our biggest peach tree. So let's just see what we can do. We had one break off of it right here. I'm going to go ahead and take that whole limb off right there. That is a limb that's bigger than my thumb. However, if we cut it off at the growth ring right there, it will heal over pretty quick. We've got a limb right here that's coming out, crossing over top of everything. We're going to take it out. And on each one of these big limbs that come out, we want to take out a lot of this little stuff in there just to lighten the load. But it is just about to get dark out here. And I want to get this done today. We've got one right here that needs to go. It's hanging out in the way of the mowers. Go ahead and take out this one. Oh my, my, my. I believe we'll take out this one. Now something to keep in mind when you're pruning your trees is just constantly take a step back and look at it. And if it don't look right to you, well, make it look right. Like I said, we're gonna just thin out the limbs on this tree, thin out all these little branches out here on each main limb, just lightening the load. Because what we don't want is our trees getting overloaded with peaches again this year. Or at least getting overloaded to the point that they can't handle them. It's definitely a good problem to have your tree overloaded with peaches. Just not when it starts tearing your peach tree all to pieces. The main thing to remember when you're pruning a tree, and honestly any kind of tree, but especially a fruit tree, is keep that canopy open, allow airflow to come in, and the more airflow you have, the less chance you have for any type of fungus or anything like that infecting your tree, because air can move around through it and, well, keep things nice and dry. It is also important, you know, it's probably not as important as pruning it the right way, but it is pretty important that you prune your trees before the sap starts rising. I haven't seen it much, But if you prune the trees while the sap's rising, they're going to bleed really bad. I don't know that they would actually die from that, but it's definitely not good for the tree. So right here, you can tell that I've already opened up that tree a ton, but I've still got a lot of weight out here on the ends of the branches, and we want to eliminate that. So I'll go ahead and tell you, if you're looking for methods to prune your tree to get the maximum number of fruit and everything like that off of your tree, well, this probably ain't the video you need to be watching. However, if you want to do like me and just let your tree be a tree, well, I hope this one right here helped you. I hope this encouraged you to get out there and take care of those fruit trees. So right off the bat, I can see one more section. That needs to come out. We got that limb crossing over there. And right there, there's a limb that's going right that way and crossing over. That one's just about too high too. There we go. So I'll stand back from this side because the lighting, where it's getting dark out here, pointing in that direction, the lighting looks a little bit better. And right now, I am pretty satisfied with the way that whole tree looks, except for this piece right here. I'm going to take this limb out. Take it out right there. Because that one's hanging down out here where most likely it's going to get scraped by more. And I do think that I could spend just a little bit more time right there thinning this out, because if all of that gets loaded up with peaches, well, it's probably going to be more than that limb can handle. So let's take this guy out. Yep, let's leave that. I'm going to take this one out too. We're going to leave that just like that. Go over here and clean up on this other side. I'm not going to do this in any special pattern or order or anything like that. I just want to thin this out. I'm just thinking in the fact, and if I do see a crossover, we're going to take that out. Like right there's a tiny one. We want to take that thing out. But I'm just thinking that if every single one of these little buds on this tree or on this limb had a peach on it, well, that's definitely most likely going to be too heavy for this tree, this limb to handle. And plus, where you're cutting all these buds off, and you've only got but just a limited number of buds on this tree, the chances are your peaches will be bigger peaches, because the tree is able to put more growth into those peaches instead of displacing it through the whole tree. All right. That looks okay. So that's our finished product on this tree. I'm not saying you couldn't go and spend more time on pruning, because I think up here towards the top it could probably take out a little bit more of this and thin some of that out a little bit more. But we're at the point where I'm happy with it, and I'm going to leave it alone. If we get lucky and the frost don't bite our trees this year, we should have bigger fruit on this peach tree because of it. So here's another view. That tree is much more open than it was to begin with. Like, we got a lot of open space in that canopy, and that's exactly what you want. But guys, I am so surprised I actually had time to finish this before the sun went down. Well, the sun's actually done went down, but it's still daylight out here. It's a beautiful sky over there this evening though. I just got a text message saying supper was done. Megan's in the house fixing supper, so I guess I finished up right on time. Once again, I know that we don't typically put out the how-to video, and I don't claim to be an expert on pruning trees. Just let me throw that out there. I will also throw out there, though, that I did go to school for horticulture, and we did learn how to prune trees in horticulture. But I am by no means an expert on pruning trees to get the maximum amount of fruit out of a tree or anything like that. Once again, I like things to look natural. I don't like none of this fancy pruning. I just like it to look natural. I like it to look like a tree. But anyways, y'all, it's supper time. What we got?
Some fried cream corn and meatloaf and the leftover peas and carrots we had the other night.
Oh, it's good.
Don't sound too bad, does it?
No, it smells good too.
Did you get it done?
I did. You know, they look good too. I pruned every single tree down there. I can't believe I had enough time to do that this year. I got it all done.
Well, good.
Peach trees, pear tree, all of it.
We won't have any peaches and pears this year.
Probably not. We'll have a late frost and it'll wipe out all the blooms.
As it usually does.
As it usually does. But if it does, it does.
That's right. I'm just joking.
That's out of our control. I mean, who knows? We might not have an apple, might not have a pear, might not have nothing.
It's very true.
Frost, late freeze could get all of that.
Yep.
It's out of our control. And y'all, before you suggest it, those trees are way too big to go down there and wrap up.
Yeah, I ain't wrapping up no trees.
Yeah, they are way too big to be wrapping up with sheets or towels, and there's just way too many of them. But anyways, y'all, I guess we're going to sit down and eat some supper, then I got to go get the kids, and...
Did you tell them where the kids were?
I did. Said they were with Grandma and Grandpa.
We lost them.
We lost them this evening. But hope y'all enjoyed the video. Like I always said, I hope you learned something, and we'll catch y'all on the next one.
Y'all have a good one.
See you later.